pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please bow your head in a moment of reverence. God of shelter, give refuge to those who suffer violence and abuse in unsafe homes. Bring your peace. God of deliverance, release those who are enslaved and controlled by abusers and give them sanctuary. Bring your freedom. God of compassion, defend the abused and the innocents who witness violence. Bring your hope. God of salvation, surround, guide, and heal those who abuse and bully others. Bring your light. God of perfect love, move us towards holiness in our relationships with you, with one another, and with creation. Bring your assurance. God of shelter and peace, deliverance and freedom, compassion and hope, salvation and light, perfect love and assurance, hear our prayer. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Denise, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Shaw. Here. Gulick.
Here.
Neese.
Here.
Owen.
Here.
Joy.
Present.
Kennedy.
Here.
Assman Leiter.
Here.
Tidswell.
Here.
Boyette.
Here.
Repsis.
Here.
Mayor Cole.
Here. Council, we've got two sets of minutes on our agenda tonight, March 25th and April 8th. Are there any changes or motion concerning one or both? Councilmember Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we approve the minutes for March 25th, 24, and April 8th, 2024 as read.
Motion by Councilmember Boyette, second by Councilmember Neese. Are there any changes or discussion before we proceed to a vote? Seeing none, if in favor of the motions just for approval, both sets of minutes, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Council courtesies tonight. Councilmember Ripsis, I know you had a courtesy.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. As I've done for the last couple of years, I wanted to take a few minutes tonight and just recognize some of our younger citizens here in Billings. Valley Federal Credit Union sponsors an event called The Hive, which is essentially a Shark Tank-like competition for high school students, bringing forward business ideas and connecting them and in some cases giving them strong funding for their ideas. So I wanted to introduce Brandon Scala and have him come up, tell us more about The Hive and introduce some of the students he's brought along with him this evening.
Mayor and Council, thank you. So yeah, this is the third year we've put on the Hive project. It is a Shark Tank-ish event where Valley and Northern Hotel is also a huge sponsor. We pony up a pretty good amount of money. The winner gets $5,000, second place gets $1,500, third place gets $1,000 to invest or infuse into the business of the student. We've had some great success, and every year has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And this year we've even actually got the attention of a private equity firm that is going to talk with one of the kids. So it's been great. They're here. I'd like to have them like 15 seconds come up and tell you who they are and kind of what their business is real quick. And so come on up. You guys all come on up. Just tell them who you are and like what you did and your business.
Hello, my name is Noah Eichel. I am the owner of the Arc of Billings, where since I was 11, I have been able to honorably supply my consumers with pet treats, which include dogs, cats, and birds.
Hi, my name is Julia, and I'm the owner of Beatrice Mexican Sweets, and I specialize in making Mexican baked goods. And
Hi, I'm Aubrey, and
I'm Kaden.
And we made a business called A&K's Terrariums, where we make a point to make plants more accessible for everyone by putting them in terrariums, which makes it easier to take care of them. Our business model is to kind of try and make plants accessible to everyone, even without a green thumb. Thank you.
Thank you. Great.
So Noah, the first gentleman, he was the one that won it. He got $5,000, and Miss Julia, she was third place. And then the AK Terrarium kids were the most memorable business, and they got $500 for that. So it was a great event.
Great. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you to all the sponsors. Great event. Any other council courtesies this evening, council members? Okay, we'll move on then to our proclamations. We do have a number of proclamations this evening, beginning with Arbor Day. In 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, and produce life-giving oxygen and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, I, William Cole, Mayor of Billings, Montana, do hereby proclaim Friday, April 26, 2024, as Arbor Day in the city of Billings, and I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands, and to urge all to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. Next is Volunteer Recognition Month. Whereas the city of Billings recognizes the invaluable contributions of volunteers to the well-being and prosperity of our community. And whereas volunteers dedicate their time, talent, and resources to various organizations and causes, selflessly working towards the betterment of Billings citizenry. And whereas April is nationally recognized as Volunteer Recognition Month, providing an opportunity for us to express gratitude and appreciation to the countless individuals who generously give of themselves to serve others. And whereas St. Vincent de Paul, an esteemed organization within our community, is hosting the 3rd annual Love and Renewal Volunteer Appreciation, a special event dedicated to celebrating the efforts and achievements of our volunteers. And whereas the Love and Renewal event serves as a platform to honor the commitment and compassion of volunteers, highlighting their significant role in fostering love, renewal, and positive change in Billings and beyond, I therefore, William Cole, Mayor of Billings, Montana, proclaim April 2024 as Volunteer Recognition Month in our city, and urge all residents to join me in expressing our deep gratitude to the volunteers who selflessly dedicate their time and effort to making our community a better place, and commend St. Vincent de Paul for their dedication to recognizing and celebrating the contributions and volunteers through the Love and Renewal event. Their efforts are instrumental in fostering a culture of appreciation and support for volunteerism in Billings. And I should have said, when I'm done with these proclamations, if we have any representatives from any of the organizations who requested the proclamations, I'll ask you to come forward if you'd like to add anything relevant to the proclamation. Next is National Therapy Animal Day. Whereas there are thousands of pet partners therapy animal teams serving in communities across the United States, and whereas Pet Partners has designated April 30 as National Therapy Animal Day, and whereas scientific research shows that interacting with therapy animals can reduce stress, relieve depression, slow heart rate, lower blood pressure, and strengthen the immune system, and whereas therapy animal teams in the city of Billings play an essential role in improving human health and well-being through the human-animal bond, and whereas therapy animal teams interact with a variety of people in our community, including veterans, seniors, patients, students, and those approaching the end of life, and whereas these exceptional therapy animals who partner with their human companions bring comfort and healing to those in need, and whereas we encourage more pet owners to consider becoming pet partner volunteers to help our community by creating greater access to meaningful therapy animal visits. Now, therefore, I, William Cole, Mayor of the City of Billings, do hereby proclaim April 30, 2024 as National Therapy Animal Day in the City of Billings, and encourage our citizens to celebrate our therapy animals and their human handlers. Further, I publicly salute the service of therapy animal teams in our community and in communities across our nation. Lastly, is recognition of Provider Appreciation Day. Whereas Child Care Aware of America and other organizations nationwide are recognizing child care providers on May 10, 2024. And whereas child care has provided a safe, nurturing place for the enrichment and development of millions of children nationwide and is a vital force in our economy. And whereas licensed child care capacity meets only 44% of statewide demand and just 40% of the demand in Yellowstone County. And whereas care providers are indispensable for the well-being and economic security of young children and families in Billings, and whereas child care programs, which are mostly small businesses that are run and staffed predominantly by women, continue to recover from hardships stemming from the pandemic to meet the needs of more families. And whereas the City of Billings recognizes that child care has been and continues to be a lifeline for families, communities, and the economy. And whereas the future depends on the quality of early childhood experiences provided to young children today, support for high-quality child care represents a worthy commitment to our children's future. Now, therefore, I, William Cole, Mayor of the City of Billings, hereby proclaim May 10, 2024 as Provider Appreciation Day in Billings and urge all citizens to recognize child care providers for their important work and how valuable they are for our community. With that, is there anyone who came tonight that would wanted to speak to any of these proclamations? If so, please come to the podium immediately. And I would just ask that you take about 3 minutes and tell us who you are and why you're here this evening.
Hello, Mayor and councilors. I'm Bianca Bell. I am this is my partner, Corella DeVille, and we are here representing Pet Partners in regards to April 30th being Pet Partners Day. I would just like to share some thoughts that me and Corella wrote down. My furry partner, Corella, and I would like to share our sincere gratitude for this opportunity of being present at this meeting and hearing the proclamation for the National Therapy Animal Day, which, as I said, is on April 30th. My hope is because of your willingness to take the time to honor such a day, that more people will be inspired by this calling, either by becoming a team themselves or allowing such special therapy to become part of their employment or through their own personal experience. On behalf of the 9 different animals Pet Partners certifies, insures, and licenses, I leave you with their thoughts. The dog says woof, the cat says meow, the rabbit says hop, the pig says oink, the horse says neigh, the bird says tweet, the llama says hum, and the rat and guinea pig say squeak, squeak. Thank you, and if you guys need any therapy, we'll be in the back.
All right, thank you very much. Corral, did you want to add anything? I guess not. All right, well, thank you very much. Anybody else?
I'm going to follow that one, but thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council. I just wanted to state briefly, my name's Jonathan Smith with St. Vincent de Paul. I'm the development coordinator at the organization, and we just thank you for observing the volunteer appreciation event we're having here on Friday, and yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for your service. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to council reports. Anything this evening from council? We have reports on organizations you serve. All right. City administrator reports. Chris is out of town, so Kevin.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, the first thing was Chris is out this week with some needed family time away from town here, so he'll be out. Both Chris and I will be out next week. We're headed to a GOSMA conference in Spearfish, South Dakota. Consent item D, as in dog, staff is recommending it be removed from the agenda by motion of council. The contractor has not submitted a schedule by the time of this meeting, so we do ask that you would remove that from the consent agenda. And reminder, there's no council meetings the week of April 29th, as it is a bye week, and there is no ex parte communications after 3 o'clock. And that's all I have tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll address that. We might as well do that now, Council, before we go into item number 1. Councilmember Aspenlighter. We'll get to that next. Councilmember Owen.
Mayor, I apologize. I don't know if there's an intent to do this later, but I think, isn't this the meeting where generally we decide if we'll be holding extra work sessions for the budget and schedule those dates?
Kevin, I know those dates were mentioned the other day. Do you know where we're at in that process?
I do think we have them penciled in on our council calendar, but I don't think it's not on the agenda tonight on what those exact dates are, but I can certainly pull those up and give them to you.
Do you remember off the hand?
Aren't they the 6th and 7th? Aren't they our next two? Okay.
What were those days again?
May 6th and 7th, I believe, were two of them, and then not the following week, but the week after, the Monday and Tuesday.
Okay. All right, thank you. Back then to the agenda, Councilmember Asselmeyer.
I'll move to remove item 1D from tonight's agenda to be rescheduled per staff.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Absalom, second by Councilmember Neese to delay to a future date to be determined by staff, item 1D as in dog. Any discussion? Seeing none, if in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we'll move on then to public comment on things that we will not have a public agenda or a public hearing on later. So if you're here for something that has a public hearing later, you can wait until then. But if you're interested in commenting on item 1, 4B, or 7, and there's a copy of the agenda back on that card, now is the time to comment. Item 1 is anything on the consent agenda. That's the long one with all the subparts. Item 4B is the Brosco Valley or Park bid award. And item 7 is the 1889 Brewing TIF Award. We will not have public hearing for those things later. So this is your time. Would anybody like to comment on item 1, 4B, or 7? No one is coming forward to the podium, so we'll close the public comment, initial comment period, and move to item number 1, our consent agenda. Separations. Councilmember Aspenleiter.
So I'd like to separate agenda item 1F, memorandum MOU with Billings Bench, and then for purposes of recusal, I'd like to separate Q2.
Thank you very much. Item 1F, as in Frank, bills of the week for March 25th. And I'm sorry, what was the other one in the middle there?
F and Q2.
Only F and Q2. Okay. Very good. Councilmember Gulick? Any other separations? Okay, Councilmember Neese?
I'll make a motion to approve the items of the consent agenda as submitted with the exception of the items removed for separation.
Which is fine. I'm just going to ask if there were any other separations before we entertain that motion. I don't see any, so very good. Motion is to approve those other items. Is there the non-separated items? Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Joy. Any discussion on the non-separated items? Councilmember Boyette.
Mayor, I just think we should acknowledge the donations that we received.
I appreciate that. Would you like to do that, Councilmember
Yes,
Boyette?
sir. The donations from the Billings Public Library and Library Foundation to the library from the foundation and the Friends of Library, and to the parks from the Northwest Energy, and of course to the police department from Patricia Schmidt. I think it's important to acknowledge these.
Very good, and much appreciated. Any other discussion on the motion, which is for approval of the non-separated items? Councilmember Bernice.
Mayor, I just want to emphasize the great work that our code enforcement's doing, and we're going to be approving the second reading of the ordinance and item N, O, and P, which I think is going to really help our city work and clean up with a lot of complaints that we've had over the years. And so I look forward to code enforcement doing a great job to help clean up and kind of address some of these broken window theories and help reduce crime throughout the city. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Councilmember Bernice. And just a reminder that item 1O, the graffiti ordinance, does establish or in conjunction with the resolution we passed, the graffiti reward fund. So if any members of the public are interested in helping us catch people who are putting graffiti up, please think about making a contribution to that fund. You can contact the city finance director or code enforcement coordinator, Tina Hoger, and they can help you through that process. Anything else? Okay, we'll move to a vote. The motion is for approval of the non-separated items. If in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
If opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. First separated item is item 1D, amendment number 1, I apologize, 1F, draft memorandum of understanding with Billings Bench Water Association. Councilmember Aspenlighter, that was your separation. Would you like to kick us off?
Yeah, maybe if it's okay with you, Mayor, maybe Ms. Malin can kind of speak to this and provide some color, context, and clarity as to where this stemmed from and what its intent is.
Sure, thank you, Councilmember Aspenlighter. So Mayor and Council, we've been working with the BBWA, as a lot of you know, for quite some time. We're now a user on the BBWA. So as they're searching for funding to help line their canal, to help possibly find ways to keep it from breaching and overtopping and all those things, they've asked us to sponsor some grants for them because they can't get money directly. We think that it's in the citizens' best interest to participate in some of those projects. Of course, if it's all the way out in the county and won't impact us, they wouldn't ask us, they have other sponsors. But for projects that impact us, that could possibly financially be beneficial to us even, city staff thinks it's good to sponsor those. What this is a really generic, DNRC had a template and they want to see that the city is sponsoring these. So it's a very generic template. It was meant to be project specific, but since they have several of these coming, we did a general one that set out some terms that said we're willing to sponsor if you go after these funds. So this was a pretty generic agreement. We intend to do project specific ones as they come in, but they probably will be less than the signing authority for Chris. So the thought was to have all of you weigh in on the big picture, and then we would do the smaller ones as they come up and work on the terms of those. So that's what was behind this.
Councilmember Aspenlighter, any further in the way of questions or comments?
Yeah, and thanks Debbie for that clarification. So I sent out some very specific questions, and after talking with Debbie, it became a little bit more clear to me what the intent of this was. I still hold heavy reservation about partnering with the BBWA and opening ourselves to liability through that partnership with that ditch. And I don't think that this MOU goes even remotely far enough to clear up the indemnification language. If you read the section on indemnification, it's incredibly vague. There needs to be a heck of a lot more beefing up of that section to be comfortable with that. I'm concerned that, yes, this is a generic DNRC document, but it doesn't talk about the very specifics in risk that we see with this particular situation. Remember, the DNRC put this together thinking about irrigation districts, generally speaking, in Huntley project in the middle of nowhere, where they're partnering typically with a conservation district that has no other legal bearing associated with it. Our situation with the BBWA is vastly different. So what I would ask of council is at the very least to table this for further discussion and clarification, and allow staff to work with legal to try to beef up that indemnification section, to try to very specifically clarify what the limits are of our involvement. And I think the mayor pointed out some very key wording changes that are concerning about insinuating that we are a partner with BBWA, which we are not. So I think there needs to be a much deeper look at this. Personally, I don't like it at all because I think it sets a precedence, and I don't think it puts a timeline on when we're involved and when we're not. How far into this do we go, and for how long? Are we going to partner forever and ever, amen, with BBWA, or are we just going to partner with them until we get to the point in which we've fulfilled our obligation to make up that 30 CFS that we need to fill our reservoirs in that agreement? I think those are all very pertinent conversations that we should have and have some thoughtful discussion around if we actually want to put an MOU in place. And if we do, how long is that valid for? Remember also that there are 5 or 6 other irrigation companies that operate within the city limits. And When we do this for one, most certainly we will get approached by Canyon Creek, by Suburban Ditch, by Big Ditch, by High Ditch. All of them will start to see that, oh, hey, the city partnered and is willing to administer this, and they're going to come knocking too. And what's our answer going to be with the precedent that we set with this agreement? This may have some extenuating circumstances, and I appreciate Debbie trying to look at this holistically. I just think this is one that council needs to weigh in on, whether we actually want to partner at this level or not, and what is the legal implications of it.
Thank you, Councilmember Aspliner. Councilmember Ripsis and Boyette wanted to be recognized, so I will recognize them unless you wanted to make a motion. If not, at this time I'll pass it to them. So Councilmember Ripsis, Councilmember Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. Gina, I see that this MOU did go through legal review. Do you want to weigh in here on the city's risks and any legal issues associated with it?
Thank you, Councilmember Ripsis, Mayor and Council. Actually, this agreement was actually reviewed by Stacy. She handles the Public Works Department, and unfortunately, she was out of the office today, so I didn't get a chance to discuss it with her. And I have not read it as thoroughly as she did, so I'm actually not ready to weigh in. I think that there are some modifications we can make to this agreement just to clarify some of the issues and to alleviate some of the concerns. So I think you all should have the policy discussions tonight and then let us work on some of those details and figuring out some language.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. Debbie, let's say we table this or put it aside for a while. What problem does that create? Is there a time frame, a week, a month, a year? Can we take some time? How does it affect if we say no today, but yes later or whatever?
So there is one grant that that BBWA has already received, and they need to have it signed by May 15th, I think it is. So we have time to go to the next meeting for that specific one. If we want to just sign a project-specific agreement for that one, we can bring that and have a discussion about bigger ones. We can bring these on a per each basis if that's the council's preference. So we're okay not approving this tonight. We do need to have it on the next agenda for at least one of the grants.
Okay, Councilmember Boyette.
And how much is that grant going to be for, the one for May 15th that you would?
If I tell you off the top of my head, I'll be wrong.
I mean, is it a lot of money or is it?
No, I actually think it's probably within Chris's signing authority.
So it's not a lot of money?
I think it's probably on the order of $50,000 to $75,000, but I would have to get back to you on that for sure.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Rowan.
I think this was discussed, Debbie, or even Andy. I don't care who wants to weigh in on this. I think we discussed this a little by email, but I'll just put this concern. It strikes me that 5% for administrative costs is low. And I would imagine the city has a regular indirect rate that it puts into grants that is something other than 5%. So I'm curious, A, why we said 5%, and B, if we think from a management perspective that's an adequate sort of overhead charge.
I will talk, and Andy will probably make some gestures behind me if I say it wrong, but I'll try. So in this particular case, we are truly a financial pass-through, and then we double-check what the consultants are sending. So BBWA will hire an engineering firm, and they will submit the reports, they'll submit the billing, they'll submit everything that has to be done. We fact-checked it, and then we reimburse them. So our time on this really is not extensive. And it goes through Andy's group, so if you think that's not right, but we thought 5% probably covered the time we would have to review those and then pass it through.
If I could just ask a follow-up, Mayor, when you say fact check, what do you mean? Are we going out, are we inspecting for completeness? I mean, what does fact check mean?
So usually it's to make sure that the applications are complete. So when they do a pay application, the consultant will put it together, they'll sign it, they will certify that they did the work, and then we will look at it and say, yep, this is in accordance with the agreement, and then we'll process that.
Okay, that's helpful. I guess from my perspective, I don't generally like template agreements because they're designed to serve the interest of whoever drew it up, not necessarily the city of Billings. So I would ask that we just go through a fine-tooth comb here and make sure the city's interests are protected, that we're clearly, insulated from liability, that we're not having a deeper ongoing relationship. I would have a preference for a per project basis, that we not do this sort of blanket, but that we do this by a grant by grant. I recognize that's a little bit of time on our agenda, but I think it also makes it very clear that this is not a partnership, but a one-time decision of independent projects that are in the city's interest to have an administrative relationship. So that would be sort of my suggestions for the good of the order. I think we need to acknowledge that there's real risk here for the city, and I would hope an MOU could be a little more narrowly tailored to reflect that.
Very good, thank you. Councilmember Aspenleiter, you wanted to follow up on something?
And I guess, Mr. Mayor or Kevin, maybe you can answer this question. Can we put this on the next work session prior to our next public regular business meeting to talk through what that looks like, hopefully having a draft that we can look at and have that real conversation about whether we want to do this as a whole, do we want to do this project one-off, and at what level are we looking to get? I don't want to get bogged down in that tonight, but if we can put that on a work session before we then move this on a regular business agenda in May, I think there could be some value in that.
Kevin?
So Mayor and Council, Councilmember Aspenleiter, I'd say that we probably could not get it on the work session by next Monday. Again, I mean, we could certainly look at it, we could talk at our tactical, but more than likely it would come. I guess we do have two Mondays from now, but I don't know what that agenda looks like offhand. Oh, and they're all budget, I'm being reminded at that stage, so that probably would not happen. I think the general policy questions, that I'm seeing here is, number one, you want to beef up the indemnification section, but we truly do need to kind of get direction from council. Do you want to see this as a general policy template with some beefed up items in there? Or do you want to see it on a per project type basis? Like Deb said, we can bring that one to you on May 12th and you see them individually. And then I would also like the question answered, if it is under Chris's signing authority and all that, are we still bringing those to council? And then under what guise, would we be doing that and bringing those in front of council if they are within that signing authority, if we have the direction that council wants to proceed tonight?
Okay, Councilmember Neese?
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, just a disclosure, I am a customer of the BBWA, and I do get their water and pay them a rental fee every year. But this would not impact me, at all. Unless someone else objects to that, I'll continue on. So I guess that my concern is when I saw this, I knew that we were a user of the water, from the head gate to the spillage in the reservoir. But I think when we talk about these other projects in this MOU, and as was brought up, is we do it one time for them, even within that confined area. But we've had lots of different areas where the parkland in the city around the ditch is starting to fail, and that could be the next thing that we're going to go to for a project to get. And so I am concerned that this would lead into more and more of that. So I'm not 100% sure. I think that we want to accept some of that liability. And so the other question I have is, if the city administrator has the ability to approve some of these, would that not still put the city at liability if he's doing these grants? So I think it is something we have to be concerned about is, do we want even the city administrator partnering like this? Because here it is in a public setting, we're talking about partnering with the BBWA. If there's something happens, now they're going to be indicating that we're partners and be liable as the city. So I know as a user of the ditch, I mean, if something happens to the ditch, I have no liability if something happens other than my water stops running and, I got to turn my pump off. Otherwise, I burn up my pump. And so I think as a user of the ditch, as the city user of the ditch, I think that's where we need to really make sure we're there without having to assume any type of liability.
Thank you, Councilmember Joy.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I guess this is a question for Director Melling. What other type of pass-through organization would you have if the City of Billings, if the BBWA applies for a grant? Usually when you apply for a grant, you have to name your pass-through organization, and that's part of the basis of an agreement for the grant, is that you have identified a pass-through organization. So if the City of Billings is not a pass-through organization, what other organizations, or if the if the BBWA has other grants with other organizations that are passed through, who are they? What would it be? Would it be a county? Would it be another municipality? What would be an appropriate pass-through organization? Thank you.
So every grant is a little bit different, but most of the time it's a governmental agency. So you're talking county, city, sometimes a conservation district, but generally a governmental agency.
Okay. Councilor, I guess what I'm hearing is there's no urgency on anything other than the May 15 project, but there is some urgency there. We may want to have a much larger policy discussion. Time doesn't allow for that very well, so at least in the short term. But I guess what I'm hearing is a general consensus, correct me if I'm wrong, though, that staff should move ahead with getting only the May 15 contract before us for the next business meeting, but work internally with DNRC, with council members, whatever, to revise the agreement, to beef up the indemnification language, to make sure there is disclaimers about partnership, don't use that kind of terminology, a clear definition of what the project is and is not, and when it terminates, so that there's some sideboards around this one project. And then we'll have to come back to the larger issue as soon as possible on, is it something we want to do at all? We may still have to have that debate even for the May 15 project one, of course. I don't want to prejudge that issue, but I guess that's what I'm hearing. Councilmember Ashland, you had your hand up?
If it's okay with council, I'll make a motion here. Mr. Mayor, I'll move to postpone agenda item 1F to the next regular business meeting, specifically with the agreement tailored to the one project only.
Second. Motion made, Councilmember Afterlighter, second by Councilmember Kennedy. Any discussion on that motion? Councilmember Joy, Councilmember Neese.
Thank you. And I don't want to make this, I want to make my comments specific to this motion, which is just a postponement. But in that larger context, I believe that this council and prior councils have been in support of the BBWA lining and taking care of issues. And if these grants are specific to the BBWA, specifically addressing issues that are vulnerabilities, I would like to say, I think council has already supported that in the past, but this postponement, I'll support it. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Neese.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll support this postponement as well. And I think of the other issues that were talked about, it was the fee that the city would be taking. And so I think that needs to be addressed and looked at a little closer, because I think it's probably lower than it should be.
Okay, that issue is still out there. Councilmember Owen?
Mayor, Councilmember Joy's comments just sort of popped a question into my mind. Is the county not willing to sponsor grants that benefit portions of the canal that run through the city? Why is this coming up?
So Mayor and Council, absolutely. They have sponsored many of these in the past. That's how they've historically done this. At this point, the projects that they're looking at, the tunnel study, the lining, the headgate, all impact us, financially even. So that's why they've asked us, because we have quite a bit of stake in it anyway.
I understand that. Is the county unwilling to do that if the city won't?
They have not asked on these particular ones because they came to us and we said we would forward this for consideration.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion before we vote? The only thing I would add, just to reinforce something I said in an email to all the council members, my concern over insurance coverage for the BBWA, I have a lot less concern about being in cooperation with the BBWA if they have substantial insurance. If they do not, that increases my concern level. So maybe that's something else that staff could get some information on in the interim. So, okay, anything else? Okay, so the motion is clear, I hope. Put off item 1F, but have it come back tailored only to the May 15 related grant and revisions to the contract along the lines that have been discussed. If in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay. Motion passes. Then item 1Q2, please. Councilmember Gulick.
I move that we approve item 1Q2. Second.
Second by Councilmember Bernice. Any discussion? Motion is for approval of item 1Q2. If in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously with the exception of Councilmember Aspen-Leiter, who did not vote. Brings us to item, or to our regular agenda. Denise, would you read item number 2?
Public hearing and approval of FY 2024-2025 Annual Action Plan.